Peter Pan is not a story about childhood. It is a story about death, about boys who disappear, about time that hunts you, and about a man who could not accept growing up. Long before Peter Pan became a symbol of magic and flight, its creator, J.M. Barrie, was surrounded by real loss. The story was shaped by dead children, by grief frozen in time, and by real boys who would never grow old. Not by choice, but by fate. By the end of this video, Peter Pan will never feel magical again. Welcome to Lore Labyrinth channel. If you're drawn to the true forgotten origins behind famous stories, subscribe, like, and share. Because some tales were never meant to stay innocent. For more than a century, Peter Pan has been sold to us as a promise, a flying boy, a place where no one grows old, a world where childhood lasts forever. In 1953, when Walt Disney Studios released Peter Pan in the United States, the story was wrapped in bright colors, cheerful songs, and the comforting idea that Neverland was an escape from responsibility, a fantasy meant for children, a bedtime story meant to feel safe. But that version is not the original story. When James Matthew Barrie first introduced Peter Pan to the world in the early 1900s, through The Little White Bird in 1902 and later Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up in 1904, London, the tone was far darker. Growing up was not just inconvenient, it was dangerous. Time was an enemy, and childhood was something that could be lost. Suddenly. In Barrie's own writing, Neverland is unstable. Children don't simply arrive there, they vanish. Boys fall out of their prams. Some are forgotten, some are never found again, and those who stay too long risk something worse than growing old. Neverland was never a paradise. It was a place where time breaks, where consequences are hidden behind fantasy, and where innocence doesn't fade, it is taken. The cheerful lie, we were told, was built on top of grief, loss, and fear of adulthood. The magic came later. The darkness was always there first. And to understand why Peter Pan was written this way, to understand what Neverland truly represents, we must begin not with a fairy tale, but with a cemetery. The story of Peter Pan does not begin in Neverland. It begins in 1860 in Kirriemuir, a small stone town in Angus, Scotland, where James Matthew Barrie was born into a strict, working-class Presbyterian family. Life was quiet, routine, ordinary, until death arrived early. In 1867, Barrie's older brother, David Barrie, died at the age of 13 after a skating accident. He was the favorite child, athletic, confident, and deeply loved, especially by their mother, Margaret Ogilvy Barrie. David's death shattered her completely. According to Barrie's own later writings and biographies, his mother found comfort in a single, devastating thought. David would never grow up. He would remain a boy forever. Young James watched this transformation closely. He learned something dangerous and permanent, that childhood was not just innocence. It was protection, love, immortality, and memory. Growing up meant being replaced. Growing up meant being forgotten. Barrie tried to fill the space David left behind. He wore his brother's clothes. He mimicked his mannerisms. And for a brief moment, his mother smiled again. Not because James was himself, but because he reminded her of the boy who died young. From that moment on, Barrie internalized a haunting lesson. To remain loved, one must never grow up. This idea followed him into adulthood, into his writing, into the world he would eventually create. A world where time is the enemy, where growing older is a threat, and where children disappear before they can become something else. Peter Pan was not born from imagination alone. He was born from grief, from a mother who could not let go, and from a boy who learned that eternal childhood was the only way to survive loss. But David Barrie was only the beginning, because years later, James Matthew Barrie would surround himself with other boys, real boys, whose lives would end just as tragically, and they would become something far more unsettling than inspiration. They would become Peter Pan's lost boys. In 1897, in Kensington Gardens, London, James Matthew Barrie found the setting that would change his life and quietly seal the fate of his most famous story. Kensington Gardens was not a playground of fantasy. It was a real public park, bordered by iron gates and watched by nannies, where children from middle and upper-class families were taken to play. Barrie walked there often, alone, observing, listening. It was there that he met 5 brothers: George, Jack, Peter, Michael, and Nicholas Llewellyn Davies. Their father, Arthur Llewellyn Davies, was a lawyer. Their mother, Sylvia Llewellyn Davies, was attentive, warm, and deeply trusting. Barrie became a familiar presence, then a storyteller, then something closer. He told the boys stories as they walked, about islands where boys flew, where pirates stalked the night, and where growing up was optional. To the outside world, it looked harmless, a lonely writer entertaining children with imagination. But over time, Barrie's presence grew constant. He joined their games. He helped shape their fantasies. He began writing stories where the boys appeared as characters, sometimes under their real names, sometimes transformed into something else. Barrie did not just observe their childhood. He entered it. He photographed them. He recorded their words. He built fictional worlds around their lives, and slowly, subtly, he rewrote himself into the center of their universe. Not as a father, not quite as a friend, but as the keeper of their childhood. Public letters and surviving accounts show how deeply embedded Barrie became in the family's life, especially after 1907, when both parents would die, leaving the boys orphaned. Barrie would later become one of their legal guardians. The idea of the Lost Boys was no longer symbolic. They were real, and they were his. Peter Pan took shape during these years, not as a fairy tale first, but as a reflection of Barrie's growing obsession with freezing time. The boys were young, playful, alive, and Barrie was terrified of the moment that would change everything, the moment they would grow up and leave him behind. So in Neverland, boys never grew old. And if they did, they disappeared. What began as play became permanence. What began as imagination became legacy. These boys were immortalized in print, frozen forever as children, long after real life moved forward. But immortality, as Barrie would learn, comes at a cost. Because these boys would become immortal, not through magic, not through flight, but through tragedy. And one by one, the lost boys of Kensington Gardens would begin to vanish. Neverland was never written as a refuge. In J.M. Barrie's original text, it is unstable, cruel, and unforgiving, far removed from the colorful island we recognize today. In The Little White Bird, published in London, 1902, Barrie writes that when children fall out of their prams and are not claimed in time, they are sent away. Not rescued, not saved, sent somewhere else. The implication is brief, almost casual, but unmistakable. Some children simply vanish, and they do not come back. By the time Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up, premiered on the London stage in 1904, that darkness had deepened. In Neverland, time does not move forward. It circles, days repeat, seasons collapse into each other. Consequences fade, except for one: growing up. In Barrie's own words, Peter Pan keeps the Lost Boys from growing older. And when they do begin to change, Peter thins them out. The line is short, unexplained, left deliberately vague, but the meaning is chilling. Boys who no longer fit the shape of eternal childhood are removed. Neverland does not allow adulthood, and it does not tolerate memory. Psychologically, Neverland resembles something far older than fantasy, a space between worlds, a suspended state, neither alive nor dead, a limbo where time has stalled and identity dissolves. The pirates, the mermaids, the endless battles, they are distractions. What truly defines Neverland is stagnation. Nothing grows, nothing heals, nothing moves forward. Peter Pan himself is not a hero in the traditional sense. He forgets people, he forgets promises, he forgets even those closest to him. Memory, like aging, threatens the illusion, and so it must be discarded. In this world, innocence is not protected. It is preserved at all costs. And then something disturbing happened. As Peter Pan became more popular, as Neverland became beloved by children across the world, the real boys who inspired the story began to die in real life, one by one. Not on the page, not in fantasy, but in history. The fantasy did not protect them. As the story of Peter Pan spread across Edwardian England, real history caught up with the boys who inspired it. In 1914, World War I erupted across Europe, dragging an entire generation into violence that no story, no matter how magical, could stop. The first to go was George Llewellyn Davies. In March 1915, at just 21 years old, George was killed in combat in Flanders, Belgium, serving as a lieutenant in the King's Royal Rifle Corps. His death was swift, recorded in military documents and letters sent home. Another young man lost to war, another name added to a list. But for James Matthew Barrie, it was something else entirely. George was one of his lost boys, one of the children he had immortalized, one of the boys who was never supposed to grow old, yet did, only to die anyway. Barrie wrote of the loss privately. Publicly, he remained composed, but the pattern had begun. Years passed. The world changed. The boys grew up. And then in May 1931, tragedy returned, this time quietly, without uniforms or gunfire. Michael Llewellyn Davies, age 20, was found drowned near Sandbanks, Dorset, alongside a close friend, Rupert Buxton. The official verdict was drowning, but rumors spread quickly. A possible suicide pact, an unspoken despair, no final letter, no explanation. Michael had always been the closest to Barrie, the most sensitive, the most deeply tied to the world of Neverland. And now, like George, he was gone. Barrie outlived them both. He watched as the boys who once ran through Kensington gardens, laughing, pretending to fly, vanished from the real world. Not frozen in childhood, not preserved by magic, but erased by history. The lost boys were being lost for real, and yet one remained. One boy lived long enough to grow up, long enough to reject the story, long enough to speak, because Peter Pan was not just a tale to him, it was a shadow he could never escape. Only one boy survived long enough to tell the truth. His name was Peter Llewellyn Davies. Born in 1897 London, he was the boy whose name would become legend. The boy the world would forever associate with flight, fantasy, and eternal childhood. And he hated it. As Peter grew older, the story that made him famous became a cage. Public records, letters, and later interviews reveal a quiet resentment that followed him into adulthood. Everywhere he went, people smiled when they heard his name. They expected magic, innocence, a boy who never grew up. But Peter did grow up, and he felt trapped by the character that refused to let him. In public statements later preserved in biographies, Peter admitted that Peter Pan overshadowed his entire life. The name was never just a name, it was a burden. He was not allowed to age quietly, not allowed to fail, to struggle, or to be ordinary. To the world, he was always supposed to remain a boy. The irony was cruel. The character of Peter Pan was built on the idea that growing up was something to fear. But the real Peter wanted exactly the opposite. He wanted distance. He wanted adulthood. He wanted to escape the shadow of a story that had frozen him in time without his consent. While audiences celebrated Peter Pan as a symbol of freedom, the boy behind the name experienced it as erasure. His real self disappeared behind fiction. His grief for his brothers, for his parents, for his stolen childhood was drowned out by applause. The world loved Peter Pan, but it never asked how Peter felt about being him. And as the years passed, Llewellyn Davies watched the truth become clearer. The story was not about joy, it was not about adventure, it was about refusing to face loss, about clinging to a moment before death arrives. The boy who inspired Peter Pan wanted nothing more than to grow up, but the story would not let him go. And the deeper meaning behind that refusal, the reason James Matthew Barrie could never let childhood end, was about to reveal itself completely. Peter Pan is more than a story of magic and adventure. It is a reflection of James Matthew Barrie's deepest fears, fears he never fully admitted, even to himself. In the streets of London, in the quiet of his study, Barrie obsessed over the idea of time. Time that steals children, time that robs mothers of sons, time that erases innocence. He feared adulthood, not for its responsibilities, but for its inevitability. He feared sexuality, not as desire, but as a symbol that life moves forward, leaving childhood and his influence behind. He feared loss, the permanent disappearance of the people he loved, especially the boys of Kensington Gardens. Peter Pan is the embodiment of all these fears. A boy who refuses to age, who refuses to feel pain, who refuses to confront the truth that life is fleeting and death is certain. In the original stories, Barrie wrapped his anxieties in symbolism. Captain Hook is not just a villain, he is time itself, always advancing, always pursuing. The crocodile is not simply a comic threat, it is death, relentless, inevitable, leaving nothing behind but a ticking echo. And the ticking clock, that sound is more than suspense. It is the heartbeat of mortality, ever present, even in a land that pretends to be timeless. Peter Pan does not conquer these forces. He does not overcome time or death. He does not mourn properly. Instead, he runs from them, creating a world where loss is postponed, grief is denied, and childhood is frozen, but only on the surface. And it is this refusal to face the truth, this desperate attempt to escape life's inevitable progression, that made Peter Pan so haunting. Because the story is not a fairy tale. It is a warning, a mirror of a man who could not let go. Peter Pan doesn't defeat death, he runs from it. And those who inspired him, those real boys, could not escape it. James Matthew Barrie lived his entire life surrounded by children, yet he never had any of his own. By the time 1937 arrived, he was in London, aging quietly in the shadow of the story that had defined him. He was a man both celebrated and misunderstood, remembered for a boy who never grew up, while the real boys who had inspired him were long gone. Barrie died alone, a solitary figure in a city that had adored his imagination, but never truly understood the grief that fueled it. His life had been a constant negotiation with loss. His brother, the Llewellyn Davies boys, the passage of time, all reflected in a story meant to deny those very truths. In a final act of paradoxical generosity, Barrie left the rights to Peter Pan to Great Ormond Street Hospital, a hospital dedicated to children's welfare. The story of eternal childhood, born from obsession and tragedy, would now support children who were suffering in reality. The laughter and wonder of Neverland became a lifeline for those who had no time to grow up at all. There is a profound irony in it. A tale about resisting adulthood and defying death continues to serve the living. Children who must face life's challenges, illness, and mortality every day. Barrie's final gesture ensured that the story which had haunted him and haunted the boys who inspired it would leave something enduring, something that mattered even beyond the confines of fiction. And yet, despite his generosity, the shadow of Peter Pan's world remained, a reminder that the story of a boy who never grew up was inseparable from the grief and tragedy of those who could not. Because in the end, even the creator of eternal childhood could not escape reality, and Neverland exists only in the spaces between memory and loss. Peter Pan is not about magic. It is not about flying or fairies or pirates. It is about grief frozen in time, a man's desperate attempt to hold on to what the world has already taken. So ask yourself, is Peter Pan a hero or a boy who refuses to let anyone grow up? Because growing up means dying? If this changed how you see Peter Pan, let me know in the comments and subscribe, because some stories were never meant to be bedtime tales.